There are 5 levels of power. Most men will not reach even the first. They will leave life as nobodies, submissive and obedient, mistaking survival for strength. However, among the many, there are those who rise to the very top, transforming into something else. It is not kings or rulers, but those who create puppets. Their names fade from memory, but their commands continue to echo. These are the shadows that govern entire states, remaining unnoticed. This story does not inspire. It is a cold manual that begins where human life usually ends. The first level is the level of powerlessness. A powerless person is not even aware of their weakness. This is the trick of the system. He is convinced that his thoughts belong only to him, that his choices matter, and that the freedoms he cherishes are granted to him for the sake of justice. However, this is just an illusion. A person who believes they are free becomes their own overseer. He lives in invisible chains and guards those who created them. Such people act on autopilot, obey, consume. If you ask them why they get up in the morning, work, or endure pain, they will respond with someone else's words. It must be so. Such is life. But these are not answers, but veiled shackles. Look closer. They fill cities, classrooms, churches, stadiums, and workplaces. These people are interchangeable, dissolved in a gray mass that conceals those above. The powerless are defined not by a lack of talent or ambition, but by submission. They wait for instructions, seek approval, and fear being alone with their thoughts. For one's own opinion can lead to exile from society, so he remains silent. He laughs along with everyone, nods when others nod, and bends at the waist for survival, not realizing that the price of such existence is his soul. Worse still, the powerless laugh at the powerful. They throw stones from the crowd and call it virtue. They see the pursuit of success as evil and discipline as poison. They exalt weakness because strength reminds them of who they never dared to become. Therefore, they create convenient philosophies and religions that glorify suffering, ideologies that condemn success, and policies that reward dependence. They call their humility morality, but morality without power is merely a performance. It is a mask worn by those too afraid to fight. Their lives are governed by fear. Fear of rejection, fear of risk, fear of punishment, but above all, fear of responsibility. For if they acknowledge their weakness, they will have to act. And action terrifies those who have built their lives on waiting. The powerless believe that the world owes them something, that justice is a natural law, and that someone will reward their suffering someday. But suffering is not currency, obedience is not a virtue, and hope does not replace strategy. Those who remain on the first level will always be used by others. Their labor, time, attention, all rented out to those willing to pay more. They are vessels, gravitational forces, parts of a mechanism. And when this mechanism fails, it is replaced without words and memory. Neither textbooks nor monuments will remember its victim. He lived quietly, he left quietly, and the world passed by, unnoticed. Now ask yourself, not as a listener or viewer, but as a human. Where are you on this staircase? Answer, honestly, not how you would like. Do you live in reaction mode? Do you wait for instructions on what is important to you? Do you scroll, nod, agree, follow, just hoping that life will get better? After all, you have already suffered enough. The helpless do not feel weak. They feel tired from numbness. They confuse exhaustion with effort, activity with progress. But progress without power is like a horse on a carousel, forever spinning, but never moving forward. If you recognize yourself at this level, it is not a reason for shame. It is a signal. Because those who remain here do not just lose the game, they don't even realize it is ongoing. They mistake endurance for wisdom, believing that if they have survived, they have become wiser. But ask yourself, if you have lived to this moment and still feel emptiness, anxiety, and replaceability, what have you really created? Survival is not success. Patience is not a goal. Obedience is not a virtue. It is time to awaken. The first level is not your prison. It is your pass, behind which are minds that control, manipulate, give orders, and dissolve into shadows. If you want to rise higher, stop lying to yourself about where you actually are. Power begins with clarity, and clarity is always born from pain. But it is dangerous because once you see the truth about your situation, you can no longer close your eyes. At the moment a person realizes their helplessness, they find themselves at a crossroads, to remain in paralysis or to awaken. Those who choose awakening enter the second level, the level of the performer. Here come those who have tasted power for the first time. They are not free yet, but they no longer sleep. They find support in their body, money, or social status, but they are not deceived. Power without strategy remains merely elegant servitude. The executor serves, follows orders, maintains order. He may rise in rank but not in independence, and the worst part is he believes this is the pinnacle. The performer is attractive because he gives the illusion of power. He wears a uniform, holds a baton, commands people, gives orders, and earns respect. But if you look deeper, his powers do not belong to him. They are borrowed. He is allowed to use them as long as he remains loyal to the system. He is strong but on a leash, imposing but replaceable. And when the order to change comes, he obeys, even if it contradicts everything he believed in. Therefore, so many soldiers, officers, chiefs, and masters live in quiet torment. They are relied upon, but they do not lead. They are respected, but they are not free. They are trusted to execute, but not to think, because we consider them dangerous. Yet the executor is indispensable. The system is based on his loyalty, stability, and willingness to give up personal freedom for promised status. He accepts this, trading independence for recognition, sacrificing his worldview for order. When someone begins to dominate others, they lose the right to set their own rules. Therefore, many men build their lives around the ritual of power, not to lead, but to feel their strength. They control families through fear, shout at subordinates, obsessed with order and punishments. But in reality, it's just a mask hiding the truth. Their own orders are written by others. You will encounter them everywhere. Middle managers proudly acting as overseers, police officers monitoring laws they themselves find questionable, fathers creating an illusion of discipline, but internally fearing their own redundancy. The performer lives in debt, as it is these debts that provide him with a script. He fears silence because it echoes his doubts. He avoids reflection, knowing the price he paid for stability. He guards the gates but never asks who built them. He breaks the backs of others for rules he did not write. And when the higher powers change direction, he has to smile and obey, no matter how humiliating this role may be. This is the price for the strength he does not possess, and it can be taken away at any moment. But the performer has one crack in his armor: disappointment. It is a bitter moment when earned respect becomes empty, when medals of promotion and applause do not drown out the quiet question inside. Is this all there is? This moment is sacred because only one who has experienced power and lost respect can rise higher. Only one who has felt control but realized they remain under control can dare to go beyond the limits. Going beyond the limits is the birth of freedom. But be careful. Ascending to the highest step of power will not be met with applause. When the performer begins to doubt the system, he becomes a threat. Those same hands that applauded him now point at him in accusation. He is called a traitor, arrogant, dangerous. That is why most performers remain in place, suppressing doubts, silencing their inner voice, clinging to debts and titles. But deep inside, they understand. They have exchanged truth for titles, becoming machines, strong yet controlled, commanding yet replaceable, and always disposable. The performer is not weak but trapped in a box, and this box is so exquisite that most do not even try to escape it. They decorate it, praise it, build careers and families within it. But if you seek true strength, the kind felt in silence, that pulls reality without a shout, then the second level is not the final stop. It is only the beginning of insight. Here you start to see the structure, the invisible threads, people who never appear, but whose traces are everywhere. If you have the courage to ask questions, if applause seems empty, if you realize that obedience and strength are not the same, then you are ready to face the next level, the one the performer fears, the one who cannot be controlled because they live in the shadows and manipulate with whispers. The one who begins to doubt the order but does not yet have their own, finds themselves in the most unpredictable space, the level of the third, the intriguer. This is the level of masks where blind obedience dies and something much more dangerous is born. Strategic selfishness. The intriguer does not serve. He manipulates, studying people like cards. He exchanges truth for benefit, listens more than he speaks, flatters more than he argues, and observes not for meaning, but for leverage. At this level, power is not taken by force. It is extracted silently, drop by drop, through influence, persuasion, and subtle calculation. Nevertheless, despite all the cunning, the intriguer is vulnerable. To manipulate, one must be close, visible, and necessary. This level rewards intelligence, but punishes attachment. Here, one cannot afford true loyalty. Every partnership is temporary, every smile calculated, every conversation a deal, a performance, a rehearsal of power. The intriguer thrives in courts, corporations, movements. Everywhere there is hierarchy. The throne is unstable, becoming the favorite of kings, an advisor to CEOs, a trusted confidant of generals. But it never becomes the king. Its power exists only in the shadows. It is the whisper behind the scenes, the one who inspires ideas, shifts the blame, spreads rumors, creates enemies. But as soon as he finds himself in the crosshairs, his influence crumbles. The main danger at this level is not failure, but success without a foundation. The intriguer often ends up being the smartest in the room, but never stops looking over his shoulder, terrified of exposure. He trusts no one, as he understands too well when he is being used. So he closes off, hoarding secrets like currency, favors like weapons, connections like insurance. But inside, he rots. A man who always pretends gradually loses himself. Even his victories become empty. He wins arguments but finds no peace. He gathers allies but receives no loyalty. He climbs the ladder but never knows if it will be pulled out from under him tomorrow. And yet the intriguer is necessary. Power cannot do without him, for he bends minds rather than bodies. He creates shifts in culture, alliances, and public opinion. He moves people without raising his hands, but his tragedy is that in gaining influence, he loses his support. His strength exists only in tension. If he stops, he becomes unnecessary. The ruler begins to doubt him. The people do not accept him. And he often ends up being the scapegoat, as everyone understands that he is clever. And cleverness, if unprotected, evokes fear. Most often, intrigants leave this world with a knife in their back or a whisper spoken about them. They are remembered not for good deeds, but for suspicions. Their talents become a source of accusations, yet some enjoy this way of life. They enjoy feeling important to influential people, playing both sides, collecting debts, and controlling conversations. At times, they truly thrive. If you look closely, it becomes clear that high-ranking schemers seek not so much power as an escape from their insignificance. They have tasted greatness, but are unable to pay the price of stepping into the light. It is easier for them to remain indispensable in the shadows than to step into the spotlight, because confidence always brings responsibility, risk, and vulnerability. Most schemers, no matter how cunning, remain cowards. It is easier to manipulate the king than to become one. The king is visible. His vulnerability makes him a target. But if you listen to this and recognize the intriguer within you or feel it awakening, know there is a door, narrow but present. It requires a sacrifice, not of your mind or strategy, but of your dependence on invisibility. One must take a step towards the game and ask oneself, what if one stops shaping the space and starts to own it? What if one stops advising kings and becomes a king oneself, even if it means being hated, hunted, and exposed? Only those who are ready to risk losing their mask, accept accusations, and endure an open challenge can move forward. This is the level of explicit power. A crown, a throne, that which intrigues fear. Here, one cannot hide, but those who withstand this fire govern not by whispers, but entire worlds. The transition from manipulation to command is a step into the flame. The intriguer hides behind influence, while the ruler stands alone, openly in the crosshairs. This is the fourth level, the level of the ruler, where there are no more masks, hints, or evasion of responsibility. The ruler must speak, act, and be accountable for every consequence of his words. His power is no longer borrowed or assumed, but proclaimed. With this proclamation, he receives worship, envy, and hatred simultaneously. They look openly at the crown. They come with smiles, applause, in the guise of friends, advisors, and lovers, waiting for the moment you blink. The ruler has what the intriguer fears, visibility, but pays for it with what the intriguer values, safety. The power of this level is not built on levers, but on presence. The ruler becomes the embodiment of the state, company, or movement. Their name acquires the status of law. Their face becomes a symbol. However, with this comes a burden. One mistake, the slightest hesitation, a wrong step, and the crowd turns away. She loves not a person, but an idea, and as soon as you disappoint that idea, you are declared a villain. Thus, rulers live in eternal paranoia, not because they are mad, but because they see what others refuse to acknowledge. Loyalty is temporary, admiration is superficial, and those who elevated you eagerly applaud your downfall. But a ruler cannot hide. He must act. His decisions change the order around him. And to this level, the ability to build, not weave intrigues, but create eras. A ruler with vision calls forth a new era, while one without vision destroys it. Thus, history remembers rulers, not advisors, generals, or performers. It retains the names of those who signed decrees, led armies, and delivered speeches. The crown makes you either immortal or shameful, and the line between these states is thinner than most can bear. But do not be mistaken. The ruler's level is not the highest. It is still a role, it is still a position, and the position can be taken away. A ruler, no matter how strong, is always vulnerable. He is forced to perform, to lead, to justify his actions every day. And in the shadows wait those who will never appear, who will not say a word. They closely watch the throne, noting mistakes and collecting failures like coins, for they know the truth that the ruler dares not speak. The throne is not the true seat of power. It is merely a distraction. And so the ruler hardens, learns to smile when betrayed, to reward silence and punish unpredictability. He learns to anticipate actions, or they may be used against him. In this process, something dies inside, the part that sought love, buried not out of malice, but necessity. Power demands emotional coldness. A ruler must be just, but not dependent, inspire, but not seek approval. If he does not master this paradox, he becomes a puppet controlled by hands whose names he does not know, yet most men dream of this very level. They thirst for glory, delight, applause, wanting to be seen, heard, crowned, but do not understand the cost it entails. Every word is weighed, every friendship calculated. Each act of strength is a challenge that is immediately tested. Therefore, most people dream of the throne but shrink away from responsibility. They crave the fruits of power, but not its burden. True strength does not shine in a crown or resonate in the applause of the crowd. It is quiet, invisible, yet undeniable. The puppeteer never appears on stage, yet his shadow weighs on rulers, kings, and entire systems. His traces are everywhere, but his name is nowhere. He speaks through laws that others consider their own, acting through leaders who believe they choose for themselves. He initiates movements that seem spontaneous but are crafted with precision. Unlike those who crave recognition, his strength lies in invisibility. He has no face to attack, no pride to humiliate. Most people fall precisely because they want to be noticed, evaluated, or instill fear. Their thirst for recognition turns them into targets. But the puppeteer remains unattainable. He chooses control over fame, eternity over praise. He arranges the pieces so that others fight against him, changes systems when rebellion brews, and builds a legacy for generations ahead. While the world debates the consequences, he remains unnoticed. But the path to this height requires sacrifice, the death of the self, a rejection of applause, a readiness to disappear while also leading. Ask yourself, are you ready to give up comfort, fame, and recognition for something greater, unshakable? Are you ready to exchange praise for eternity, noisy jubilation for the quiet fear that only your influence instills? Only a few can walk this path, but those who dare transcend earthly power and become something eternal. Ghosts, architects changing civilization from behind the scenes. Sorry, I can't help with that request.